The ceremony was still echoing across Fort Bragg when the ER doors slammed open. Army soldiers stormed in carrying their commanding general. His chest barely rose, his lips turning pale blue. "Cardiac arrest," one of the doctors muttered, shaking his head. "Stage 4. But Dr. Emma Morrison froze, the stiffness in his jaw, the discoloration in his fingertips, the pinpoint pupils that didn't dilate. This wasn't cardiac arrest. It was poison. Memories from her classified project clawed at her. 3 years in a military lab, designing antidotes for chemical weapons, when only seconds stood between exposure and death. Around her, chaos reigned, alarms blaring, medics shouting. But Emma's hands were steady. She knew if she was wrong, the general was lost. If she was right, she was the only one in that hospital who could save him. And she was about to save the father who'd abandoned her 20 years ago. Before we begin, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the stories of the quiet heroes who change lives when no one else can. The ER at Mercy General Hospital was never truly quiet. The hum of fluorescent lights, the buzz of pagers, the faint rhythm of heart monitors. They created a background music of urgency that never seemed to stop. Dr. Emma Morrison leaned over her desk, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, green eyes scanning through charts as the clock struck past 9 p.m. It had been another long day of gunshot wounds, car accidents, and exhausted nurses. The kind of night that felt like it would never end. But then the sound of boots thundered down the corridor, loud and out of place, as if a squad had stormed the hospital. The ER doors swung open. 4 army soldiers burst through, uniforms still crisp from the evening ceremony. Their broad shoulders bent under the weight of a stretcher. On it lay their commanding general, unconscious, his chest struggling for shallow breaths. His skin had a bluish tint. Sweat poured from his forehead. The monitors screamed as soon as he was wheeled into Trauma 1. And when Emma saw his face, her blood ran cold. Because that wasn't just any general. That was General James Morrison, her father. 20 years. 20 years since she'd last seen him. Since he'd chosen the army over her mother, over the family that needed him. Emma had been 14. Her mother had been sick. Stage 3, cancer, needed him home. But the general had deployment orders, Iraq, a command position he couldn't refuse. "I have to go," he'd said. "This is bigger than us." Her mother died 6 months later, alone in a hospital room. Emma holding her hand. He didn't make it to the funeral. Classified mission, the army liaison had said. He sends his condolences. Condolences. Like that was supposed to be enough. Emma had cut all contact after that, changed her last name back to her mother's maiden name, went to college, medical school, built a life without him. She became Dr. Emma Morrison, not Morrison, the general's daughter, just Morrison, the doctor. And now, after 20 years, here he was, dying on a stretcher in her ER. The universe had a sick sense of humour. "BP is 90/60 and dropping," a nurse shouted. "Heart rate 140, tachycardic." Dr. Stevens, the senior attending, pushed through the crowd. Tall, 50s, grey hair, 30 years of emergency medicine. "What do we know?" he barked. One of the soldiers stepped forward. Young, maybe 25. His name tag read, Sergeant Phillips. "General Morrison, sir." He collapsed during the awards ceremony at Fort Bragg. Started convulsing. "We got him here as fast as we could." "Any medical history?" Stevens asked. "None, sir." "He's in perfect health. Runs 5 miles every morning. Doesn't smoke. Doesn't drink." Stevens nodded, turned to the team. "Get me a full cardiac panel, 12 lead EKG, and prep the crash cart. This looks like a massive MI, myocardial infarction, heart attack." But Emma was staring at her father's face. The muscle rigidity in his jaw wasn't right. Cardiac patients went slack, relaxed. This was different. His pupils were contracted, pinpoints, even under the bright trauma bay lights, and his fingertips. They had a faint blue-grey tint, not the cyanosis of oxygen deprivation, something else. Emma's mind raced back. 3 years ago, Fort Detrick, the US Army Medical Research Institute of Chemical Defense. She'd spent 36 months there, part of a classified project, developing rapid response antidotes for chemical warfare agents, nerve agents, biological toxins, poisonous compounds designed to kill quickly and quietly. She'd seen this presentation before, in training videos, in lab simulations, in classified briefings where they'd shown her what happened when these weapons were deployed in the field. She remembered the symptoms, the progression, the narrow window of treatment. This wasn't a heart attack. Dr. Stevens, Emma said quietly. He didn't hear her, too focused on reading the EKG printout. Dr. Stevens, she said louder. He looked up, annoyed. Dr. Morrison, if you're not assisting, step back. This isn't cardiac arrest. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. Stevens frowned. Excuse me? Look at his pupils. The muscle rigidity, the discoloration pattern. Emma stepped closer to the table. This is a toxicology case, not cardiology. You're saying he was poisoned? Yes. Stephen stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Based on what? A hunch? Based on 3 years of chemical weapons research at Fort Detrick. I know what nerve agent poisoning looks like. And this is it. The soldiers exchanged glances, nervous, confused. Stevens shook his head. That's impossible. He was at a military ceremony, surrounded by security. No one could have... Someone did. Emma grabbed a penlight, checked her father's pupils again. They didn't react, didn't dilate, fixed and constricted. This is organophosphate poisoning, military grade, probably aerosolized or injected. You're saying someone tried to assassinate a 3-star general. I'm saying someone succeeded, and if we don't administer the antidote in the next 10 minutes, he dies. Stevens hesitated. Emma could see the calculation in his eyes. Risk versus reward, protocol versus instinct. What antidote? He asked finally. Atropine, 2 milligrams intravenous push, followed by pralidoxim, 2 grams over 30 minutes. That's a nerve agent protocol, because this is nerve agent poisoning. If you're wrong, then he was going to die anyway. Emma locked eyes with him. But if I'm right, I'm the only person in this hospital who knows how to save him. For 3 long seconds, no one moved. Then Stevens nodded. Do it. Emma's hands moved fast. Automatic. Trained. She grabbed the atropine from the crash cart, drew up 2 milligrams, found a vein in her father's arm. Administering atropine, she announced. Mark the time. The drug went in. Nothing happened. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The monitor still screamed. Heart rate still erratic. Blood pressure still dropping. Emma grabbed the pralidoxim, the antidote for nerve agents. It worked by reactivating the enzyme that organophosphates paralyzed. If she was right, it would reverse the poisoning. If she was wrong, she'd just wasted critical minutes. She pushed the drug through the IV, waited. 45 seconds. 60. Still nothing. Emma felt sweat on her forehead, doubt creeping in. What if she was wrong? What if this really was just a heart attack? What if she just killed him with the wrong treatment? Then the monitor changed. 1 beep, different pitch, stronger, then another. The heart rate began to slow. 140, 130, 120. Blood pressure ticked upward. 90 over 60, 95 over 65. The general's jaw relaxed, the rigid muscle tone easing. His chest rose, deeper breath, more regular. Oh, my God, a nurse whispered. It's working. Dr. Stevens stared at the monitor, then at Emma. How did you know? Emma didn't answer. She was watching her father's face, watching colour return to his lips, watching his pupils begin to respond to light. He was alive. She'd saved him. The man who'd abandoned her, who'd chosen duty over family, who'd let her mother die alone. She'd saved him anyway. They moved General Morrison to the ICU 2 hours later, stable, breathing on his own, all vitals within normal range. Emma stood outside his room, watching through the glass window. Her reflection stared back at her in the dark glass. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair coming loose from its bun, white coat stained with blood and sweat, but alive. And so was he. Dr. Stevens approached, handed her a cup of coffee. "You were right," he said quietly. "Toxicology came back. Organophosphate compound, VX derivative, military-grade nerve agent." Emma nodded. She'd known. But hearing it confirmed was different. "How did you know?" Stevens asked. "Before the lab results?" "I told you," fought Dietrich. "I spent 3 years studying this stuff. But you recognized it instantly." Most doctors would have missed it. Hell, I missed it. 30 years in emergency medicine, and I was ready to treat him for a heart attack. Most doctors didn't design the antidote protocol. Emma sipped her coffee. Bitter. Cold. "I wrote the treatment guidelines for this exact compound 2 years ago. Classified research. I studied every symptom, every presentation, every possible delivery method. I knew it the moment I saw his face." Stevens absorbed that, looked at her with new respect. "So you saved him because you were the only person here who knew what he had?" "I saved him because I'm a doctor. It's what I do." "Even though he's your father?" Emma's hand tightened on the coffee cup. "How did you know?" "Same last name, same face, and the way you looked at him when they wheeled him in. That wasn't just a doctor looking at a patient. That was personal." Stephen studied her carefully. "You didn't want to save him, did you?" Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring through the glass at the man in the hospital bed. "No, I didn't. But you did anyway. Because that's what doctors do. We don't get to choose who deserves to live and who deserves to die. We treat everyone equally. We save everyone, even the people who hurt us, even the people who abandoned us. That's the oath we took." Stevens nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, you made the right call, medically and morally." "I know." He walked away, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts, and the man in the ICU room. General Morrison woke up at 4:17 a.m. Emma was still there, sitting in a chair beside his bed. She tried to leave, tried to hand him off to the night shift, but something kept her there. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure, maybe just exhaustion making her unable to move. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused, confused. The drug still working through his system. Then he saw her. "Emma?" His voice was rough, hoarse from the intubation tube they'd removed hours ago. She didn't respond, just watched him. Am I dreaming?" he asked. "No. You're in the ICU at Mercy General. You were poisoned, nearly died. I saved you." He tried to sit up, gasped, fell back against the pillows. "Don't move," Emma said. Her voice was clinical, professional. "You're still weak. The nerve agent attacked your respiratory system. Your diaphragm was paralyzed. We had to ventilate you. You'll need at least 48 hours to recover full lung function." "Nerve agent? VX derivative. Someone tried to kill you, probably at the ceremony. We're still investigating how they delivered it. Military police are reviewing security footage now. General Morrison processed that." His eyes cleared. Military training kicking in even through the haze of medication. Decades of command experience taking over. "How did you know?" he asked. "How did you diagnose it?" Most doctors wouldn't have recognized it. Fort Dietrich. "I worked there for 3 years. Chemical defense research. I recognized the symptoms because I'd studied them, designed the treatment protocol. I knew exactly what I was looking at." His expression shifted, something between pride and regret. between admiration and shame. You became a doctor. I became a lot of things you never knew about. Silence. The machines beeped. The ventilation system hummed. The hospital carried on around them. But in this room, time stood still. I didn't know you were here, he said finally. Didn't know you worked at this hospital. Why would you? You haven't called in 20 years. He flinched, like she'd struck him physically. Good. Emma, Don't. Her voice was sharp, cold, years of buried pain rising to the surface. Don't apologize. Don't explain. I don't want to hear it. Then what do you want? She stood, walked to the window, looked out at the dark city beyond, the lights of Philadelphia spreading out below them, thousands of lives being lived, families together, fathers with daughters. I wanted you to see what I became without you, she said quietly. I wanted you to know that I didn't need you, that I built this career on my own, that I saved your life because I'm better at my job than you ever were at being a father. The words hung in the air, harsh, true, painful. General Morrison's eyes filled with tears. You're right. I was a terrible father. I know. I chose the army over you, over your mother. I told myself it was duty, honor, service. But really, I was just afraid. Emma turned to face him. Afraid of what? Of failing. Of being the kind of father I never had. My dad was military too, gone for years at a time. I barely knew him. And when he was home, he was a stranger. Cold, distant. I swore I'd be different, but I didn't know how. So I ran. I chose the one thing I was good at, and I abandoned the people who needed me most. Emma felt something crack in her chest. The anger she carried for 20 years, the resentment, the pain. It was still there, but something else was there too. Understanding. Maybe. Mum needed you, Emma said. Her voice broke. She was dying. Stage 3 breast cancer. The doctors said she had maybe a year, maybe less. And you weren't there. I was 14 years old, holding her hand while she took her last breath. Alone. Because you chose a mission over us. I know. Tears ran down his face now. Unchecked. I think about that every day. Every single day for 20 years. I should have been there. I should have resigned my commission. Retired. Come home. Held her hand. Held yours. But I didn't. And I've regretted it every moment since. Regret doesn't bring her back. No, it doesn't. He looked at her. Really looked at her. But maybe it's not too late for us. Emma shook her head. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking for a chance to try, to be the father I should have been 20 years ago. She stood there, looking at the man who'd given her life and then walked away from it. The man she'd just saved. You almost died tonight, she said. Someone tried to kill you, and I was the only person who could stop it. Do you understand how insane that is? That the daughter you abandoned was the only one who could save you. I understand. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I understand that you're a better person than I ever was. That you saved me even though I didn't deserve it. That takes courage I've never had. Emma felt tears on her own cheeks now. I'm a doctor. It's what I do. No. He squeezed her hand. Weak. Shaky. But there. You're my daughter. And I'm so proud of who you've become. The words broke something in her. Some wall she'd built 20 years ago to protect herself from the pain of his absence. She sat down, held his hand. They didn't speak, just sat there, father and daughter, in a hospital room at 4 a.m. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The military investigation concluded 3 days later. The poison had been delivered via a needle, hidden in a commemorative pen given to the general during the ceremony. A handshake, a congratulations. A tiny prick nobody noticed. The assassin was never found. But the attempts stopped. CID, Army Criminal Investigation Division, interviewed Emma twice, wanted to know how she'd recognized the poison so quickly, whether she had any enemies who might target her father through her. She told them about Fort Detrick, about her research, about the classified protocols she'd developed. They cleared her, thanked her, called her a hero. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired. General Morrison stayed at Mercy General for 2 weeks, recovering, healing. Emma checked on him every day, sometimes twice a day. At first, the visits were short, professional, doctor checking on patient. But slowly, they became longer. They talked about her career, about his regrets, about her mother, about all the years in between. It wasn't easy. 20 years of pain didn't heal overnight. But they tried. On the day of his discharge, Emma walked him to the hospital entrance. A military car was waiting to take him back to base. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. You already thanked me. I'll keep thanking you. Every day. For the rest of my life." She smiled faintly. "That's a lot of thank yous. You saved my life and gave me a second chance at being your father. That deserves a lot of thank yous." He pulled something from his pocket. A photograph. Old. Faded. Worn at the edges from being folded and unfolded 1,000 times. It was a picture of Emma, 14 years old. School photo. Taken the year he left. "I carried this with me," he said. "Every deployment, every mission, every day for 20 years. In my wallet. Right next to my military ID, so every time I showed my credentials, I saw your face." Emma stared at the photo, at the girl she'd been. Braces, awkward smile, before her mother got sick, before everything changed. "I never forgot you," he said quietly. "Even when I was too afraid to call, even when I told myself you were better off without me. I never forgot." She took the photo, studied it, remembered that day. Her mother had driven her to school. They'd laughed about something in the car. What was it? She couldn't remember now. "Keep it," she said, handing it back. "You'll need something to remind you why you can't waste this second chance." He took it, nodded, carefully placed it back in his wallet. "I won't, I promise." Emma watched as he got into the car, as it pulled away, her father raising his hand in a small wave as they turned the corner. She didn't know what the future held, whether they'd rebuild their relationship, whether the wounds would ever fully heal. But for the first time in 20 years, she felt something other than anger when she thought about her father. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. 3 months later, Emma's phone rang during a night shift. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Dr. Morrison?" A familiar voice, deep, authoritative. "Dad? I'm calling to tell you something. Something I should have said 20 years ago." Emma held her breath. "I'm retiring from the army. After 40 years, I'm finally hanging up the uniform." "Why?" "Because I have a daughter, and I've missed enough of her life. I'm not missing any more. I'm moving to Philadelphia. Found an apartment 3 blocks from your hospital. I want to be here, for you, if you'll let me." Emma felt tears in her eyes. "What are you going to do? You've been Army your whole life." "I don't know yet, but I'd like to figure it out, with you, if you'll let me." She smiled, really smiled, for the first time in as long as she could remember. "Yeah," she said, "I'd like that. 'Cause some stories don't end with perfect reconciliation. They end with the courage to try. And sometimes, the hardest person to save isn't the one on the table. It's the one you thought you'd lost forever. If you believe some poisons can only be cured by forgiveness, and some wounds only heal with time, subscribe and share this story. Because healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about choosing who you become in spite of it. Comment, second chances if you think everyone deserves a chance to make things right, even if it takes 20 years, even if it starts with poison and ends with a phone call. Because sometimes the deadliest toxin isn't the one in your blood, it's the one in your heart, and the only antidote is love.